I flipped him over and I lifted him up out of the water, and the look on my face and Patrick's face is like jaw-dropping, utter disbelief, shock, awe. And then we look at each other like, oh, I have this moment of like, what? It's the most alien, crazy shit ever. Like nearly 10 months or whatever you are pregnant. It's not 9, by the way. Like 16 hours of labor still does not prepare you to pull another human out of your vagina. What's up, beautiful beings? Welcome to an episode of Awakened Love. I didn't expect to be here. I was actually waiting to jump on someone else's podcast and they didn't show up. And I thought, I'm here. I have someone caring for River. I'm all done up. I haven't worn makeup like this in a long time. So I thought, you know what? Why don't I just record my birth story? Here I am. Wow, it's been a while. What a wild ride. You just don't know until you know. And I'm sure any mother or parent listening is just like gently smiling and nodding their head like, mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing can prepare you for becoming a parent. You really just don't get it until you do it. Even as someone who works with women and supports and has supported for many years mothers, and yeah, nothing and no one can prepare you. So River's home birth story. Let's go. We got in bed and it was the 13th of August. He was due, his due date was the 16th. And because he was my first, my midwife was like, expect to go at least 7 days past your due date. So I had actually been scheduled to complete work on the 16th. Like the 16th would be free and my last day of work was going to be the 15th, because then I expected I'd have like a week, maybe even 2 before he would actually come. Ha ha ha. Thankfully, or not so thankfully, depending how you look at it, I punctured my finger on a dish brush a week before. And it got so severely and quickly infected that I had to go to the hospital. And given that I gave birth just a week later, so I have some sense of pain, right? Like to compare it to. When I say that this finger infection was excruciating, it was actually excruciating. So I knew something was quite wrong. I think because I was so pregnant, your body is just very efficient, let's say. Went to the hospital, ended up getting pumped with IV antibiotics. I hadn't taken antibiotics in 7 years, but I had to. It was serious and they didn't want it to spread to the tendons in my hands because then it would have been a real issue. And I was reluctant but surrendered to the path, and thankfully it healed, and it had just healed enough for me to like put weight on it, because I remember saying to myself, oh Lordy B, I really hope that I don't have to do a home birth one-handed, because at that time I had to keep my hand elevated to my heart and I couldn't use it. I couldn't, be in full body expression, moving around how I would need to move around with my very pregnant, very large baby in there. So super grateful. The 13th, my hand was feeling better, but thankfully I had stopped clients early because of my hand. And then I go to bed and we were sleeping upstairs because our guest bedroom mattress was like a lot softer than our mattress. And my body was getting so big and bones obviously starting to get nice and supple so that everything can move and make way for the baby. So we're sleeping upstairs. All of a sudden I wake up, and when I wake up, I'm already standing in the middle of the room. And it's like Patrick's voice that kind of wakes me up. He's like, baby, what's wrong? Because I leapt out of bed, apparently. And all of a sudden I look down and Hollywood style, my waters break, which also in all the birthing classes, they tell you like, your waters might not break. It definitely is not like that. It's so rarely like that. So I was not expecting that. It just, as Patrick says, like 3 pint glasses just all over the floor. So it was like quite dramatic. I was like off asleep, like, whoa, this is happening now. And again, a lot of the time, like when you go into labor, women are like, am I in labor? Am I not in labor? Because you don't necessarily have the waters break like in the movies. But I did. And I must have trickled. And that trickling sensation made me leap out of bed and kind of still kind of asleep. I probably thought I was wetting myself, and then stood in the middle of the room, woke up to Patrick's voice and just gushed all over the floor. And was like, all right. And instantly I just got back into bed and was like, I need to sleep, because I'd listened to enough birth stories to know that you need to rest. If labor is starting, now's the time to sleep because you don't know how long it's going to go for and you need all the rest you can get. And I looked, I was like, what time is it? He was like 11:20. I was like, oh my gosh, we've been asleep for like an hour and 20 minutes. Uh-oh. So I get in bed, I put my earplugs in, I put my eye mask on, I text my midwife. She's like, get in bed. I'm like, already done. I'm on it. Could not sleep. Finally fell asleep. I was just laying there meditating with my eyes closed, really resting, focusing on trying to get rest. Fell asleep at 2 a.m. and then woke up at 4 a.m. The contractions were strong enough that I couldn't sleep anymore, but they weren't bad. They weren't painful. They were just, the intensity was such that I could feel them and I couldn't sleep through them anymore. So I had, let's say 2 hours from 2 to 4 a.m. and the hour before. So I had like, 3, max 4 hours sleep. And I was like, all right, well, it's go time. So I woke Patrick up, went downstairs into our bedroom, and we kind of set up the birthing cave because it wasn't fully set up. We did not expect him to come a few days before his due date. We expected him to come late. So yeah, Patrick was, I wanted it totally blacked out, and the blinds down there are not blackout blinds. So he was taping moving blankets to the outsides of the windows. So it was fully dark in there. He put on an infuser with lavender oil in it and put the salt lamp on and just cleared the space, feathered the nest. And I was just laying on the sheepskin rug. And then, after about an hour, he came, setting everything up. He came and laid with me. Gratefully, I had ordered and gotten all my Labor Aid popsicles. It was August, so it was really hot. And I made Labor Aid, which is like coconut water, lemon juice, lime juice, Himalayan salt. I put a bit of Manuka honey in there as like an electrolyte drink, but made them into ice blocks, we call them in Australia. They call them popsicles here in America, in the freezer. Made those the day before, like thinking I was so early and on top of things. Got some miso soup packets in case I wanted those. So yeah, I was laying down on the sheepskin rug and Patrick just came and was laying and spooning me, and I would squeeze his hand when the surge was coming on, and he would just massage my back and rub my legs. And then we'd just lay there in silence, just kissing, cuddling, and just holding me. And I remember thinking, we were there for about 4 hours just on the sheepskin rug, just squeezing his hand when the surge would come and he'd massage, and then relaxing when it would go. And I remember thinking like, wow, if this is labor, this is so manageable. It's just like a period pain, like a period cramp. It's really manageable. Haha. And yeah, things got pretty psychedelic at that point. There was a lot of healing moments. I had a moment where I felt like I could hear someone trying to get in upstairs, which if you follow me on Instagram is a whole other story for what happened months later. We actually did have an attempted home invasion, which is kind of weird. And I'm like, was it a premonition? Was I in a space like beyond time and space, such that time was folding on itself so I could hear, what was it? Who knows? But either way, I thought I could hear someone trying to get in upstairs. And I know, given my history, that is something I've had to work on, this fear of invasion, this really strong dislike around invasion. Like, understandably, we all dislike being invaded, but having trauma around that and knowing that. And so just was able to notice that's my trauma, and I thought I could hear someone trying to get in. And I said to Patrick, oh my God, someone's trying to get in upstairs. And he was like, no, baby, no one's here. And I was like, oh, that's my trauma. And I was able to kind of travel to those places inside myself. It was very psychedelic, and meet the younger part of me and hold her. And I was just talking to her saying, you're safe, you're loved, you're protected, you're safe, you're loved, you're protected. And it's interesting that that's what's came through as the mantra, because that is a little nursery rhyme that I sing for River. I sing that to him now, and that came through during his birth. And I was just saying to my little one, you're safe, you're loved, you're protected. Your husband is here, Patrick's with you, he's holding you, you're safe, you're loved, you're protected. And I just repeated that over and over again for I don't know how long, until any of the fear that was still in my system. It almost felt like an integration of all the healing work that I've done on that trauma, but it was almost a final piece, I guess. We're never really done. Like, is there really a final piece of trauma? But it did feel like a big graduation moment, a big karmic clearing and sense of closure and release. It was really powerful. And then I was laying kind of in this more sensual and relaxed space. And then some sexual shame, shame first came up. And again, I'm so grateful to have done all the work that I've done with body-based therapy so that I can really identify in moments what's happening inside of my body. What is this that I'm feeling? What is this emotion? Really have that inner attunement or that connection. Because it takes practice to be able to name feelings, particularly shame. Shame can be a really tricky feeling to name because we spend so much time hiding, avoiding, disconnecting from that feeling that when it does arise, we're so good at suppressing and disconnecting from it. Oftentimes, we don't even know that it's there or that it's an undercurrent to other emotions or behaviors. So I just felt this really intense shame come over me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is the next part of me in line to be loved and healed through my love. And kind of like almost felt like I was in that ayahuasca space or when you're in medicine space and you're like, all right, here we go. These pieces and parts are going to arise that need to be worked and loved. And I just sort of traveled back through all the times in my life where I kind of misused sexual energy or had sexual energy misused towards me. But it was actually mainly around looking when I had not believed in myself, not felt worthy, and had used sex or even just sexiness, seductiveness to get my needs met, to get love, to get connection, safety, like whatever it was. And just kind of seeing these vignettes of moments in my life when it actually made me feel really unsafe or, just challenging, hard, yucky, shameful moments. And as I was going back through this timeline and witnessing these vignettes, so psychedelic for anyone who's done psychedelics, probably like, well, it does really sound like you're on psychedelics. It felt like it. But as I was traveling back through that timeline, visiting all these memories and these vignettes from my life, I was loving that girl and I was being the guide and the mentor that I guess in this moment I'm realizing the mother, but I was being like the guide and the mentor that I needed in those moments. And I was speaking the words to myself. I was like, my love, you did the best you could with the tools you had. You really needed support and guidance and you didn't have it. And you do have it now. And I'm here now. I'm so sorry that you felt you had to do that or that you experienced this. And I love you so much. And there's nothing you could ever do that would take my love away. And I love you so much. I forgive you fully. You are forgiven. Forgiveness is automatic. And I'm not ashamed of you. I'm not ashamed of anything you've done. I love you. I'm here. Just really speaking words of love and just, again, just loving that part of me open and just feeling it melt away into the next surge, into this kind of like timeless place. And I remember women saying to me, oh, you don't know how long your labor is. Like you're not in a space of time. And I was like, yeah, right. But really, actually, you just are not in a space of time. You just lose time. It could have been, I could have been there for 30 minutes. I could have been there for 8 hours. I don't know. We were there for, I think, 4 or 5 hours. I think at around 9 or 10 a.m. So got out of bed at 4 a.m. Waters broke at 11:30 p.m. Got out of bed at 4 a.m. My midwife, Lindsay, arrived at, I think, 9 or 10. By then, just as she arrived, she's such a witch, I would say, so spiritual and so tapped in. She really arrived right as things were kind of starting to kick off, get more intense. And when she arrived, I asked her to check me because I wanted to know how dilated I was, how effaced my cervix was, because I had listened and read and watched enough birth stories to know that sometimes you feel like you're meeting the surges in a way that's effective, right? Like doing what you need to do to help your body open and relax, but then you find that you're not dilating. And who knows why that happens, but I just wanted to know that what I was doing was working, that I was dilating with the surges. And she checked me and she said, you are 5 centimeters and nearly fully effaced. And I was like, wow, I'm halfway there. Okay. Little did I know that, of course, the second half is the steepest climb. But that was, it's good. It's good to have that ignorance. I was like, great. All right, rock and roll. And she's like, you're doing so well, amazing. So then I spent the next few hours trying to kind of figure out something that would work to meet the intensity. I tried the hot shower, but standing up was just too hard. I couldn't really lay in the bath because I'm too big for a regular size bath. I'm like, who fits in these things, let alone being pregnant? I mean, I'm 5'9", which is tall. It's not that tall, but also 5'9", super pregnant. I don't really fit in a regular bathtub even just normally. I think anyone above 5'7", it's not comfortable. You need a big bathtub. Anyway, I didn't really find it super comfortable. At that point when I was in the hot water and the surges had really been kicking up, I looked at Lindsay. I think it was one of the only things I said other than the word space when I wanted space from everyone, which was basically all the time, or water. I just looked at her and said, women are fucking gangster. And she was like, Yeah. Just like having this realization of like, wow, women are fucking gangster. This is no joke. And eventually I like sat on the toilet with my squatty potty, the wooden footstool around the toilet to put my feet up. And I found my place. I was like, oh, this is the spot for me. There's a reason they call it the dilation station, because that position really helps you dilate, which is great. And for me, I actually was like, okay, here, like upright, I can meet the surges super focused, and I stayed there for the rest of my labor until it was time to push. I think I was on that toilet for 6 hours. Every now and then I would get in the shower, which I think is when I said the gangster comment, but either way. Sitting on that toilet, and when those surges would come, I would just count my breath. For as long as I breathed in, I would count, and I would try and breathe in as much air as I could so that I could exhale for as long as I could and relax as deeply as I could. Um, in the face of a lot of intensity of sensation. You know, it's interesting. I've heard people say this before, and I really agree. Pain isn't the right word. Pain is something's wrong, and it's different. It's the most intense sensation I've ever experienced. It was really intense, and it wasn't pain. Pain is different. Pain is like, oh my God, something's wrong. This was like, wow, I'm giving birth and I'm powerful and I'm about to meet my baby. And I had to really focus, because if I was distracted, and anything could distract me, I was so sensitive. You're like so open in that space. Like my husband, my midwife, so attuned, so energetically sensitive, amazing people, just having them in the space, being aware of them, because I'm so aware of other people's energy. It's my job to track people. I'm very good at it. And as my mentor says, it's like, depending on the come from, depending on where I am or how resourced I am, she's like, you're sensitive to the point of being psychic or kind of hypervigilant in moments of not being resourced, right? So that's when our trauma becomes our gift, or our gift becomes our trauma. And that's kind of usually in difficult situations in childhood, we use whatever our natural gifts are to survive, right? So who knows, is it the chicken or the egg? But either way, I track people's energy, emotions in the space. So I couldn't have anyone in the space with me. It didn't matter who it was. I needed everybody out. So I was by myself on the toilet counting. I thought I would be doing an embodiment ritual. I was like, birth is going to be the greatest embodiment ritual of my life. My birth was a Zen meditation. I did not expect that. I thought I'd be like, wow, wow, like making tons of sounds and moving around and like moving the energy. I was bolt upright, sitting on that toilet, eyes closed, silent, solo, counting my contractions, because what I needed was focus. If I got distracted, it felt like getting hit by a wave from behind, and then I'd be tossed around the wave the whole time trying to like regain footing. And then when you're trying to regain footing, your mind can get away from you. And I was super strict with my mind. I was like, no negative thoughts, none of that. Like wiping the slate of my mind clean. I was very strict with my thoughts, kept myself super focused. But in order to do that, I couldn't have anyone in the space. And I just counted for 6 hours on that toilet. And then when the surge would be done, I would let go of the counting. And I'd heard women talk about this before. You go like off planet. It's almost like you go into such a deep state of rest that you feel like you're almost unconscious. And then all of a sudden you're like slowly snapped back into your body by the sensation of the surge. And I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, counting up to like 90 seconds or whatever they were. Breathing in. Breathing in is quite hard because the sensation is so intense, but I know that the more I breathe in, the more air I get on the way out, and the more air I get on the way out, the more I'm going to relax, and the more I relax, the more I'm going to dilate, and I'm going to keep this train moving. So I was like real focused. Yeah, I did not want anyone around. Just wanted to like be in my zone. And then in between, the body is so intelligent. You get such deep rest in that in between state. It's like the deepest rest you could ever have. You basically feel unconscious, and then you come back, and then you're unconscious, and then you come back. You're not unconscious, but you go into such a deep state of rest. I'd be so curious to measure the brain waves of women when they're in pregnancy, and what brainwave state are you in between surges versus during surges, or contractions is another word for that. Yeah, it was really, really, really deep, profound, focused. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Like I've never, of all my 15 years of meditation, the last decade doing it every single day, it took everything I had, every ounce of concentration that I've developed through my practice, every tool, everything, all of the energy in my entire being, all psychic available energy to me, all mental, all physical, all emotional. and using my willpower to channel all of that energy in one direction and one direction only, it took everything I had and was kind of amazing to feel and experience that level of one pointed focus through such intensity was kind of an amazing experience, actually. Um, and then eventually because I was also silent. I did not expect to be silent. I really did not expect that. And then as things started to progress, I was counting, and all of a sudden, the surges, the contractions, they start to stack. And you don't get a break because, you can do anything for 90 seconds. That's what I always told myself. It's like, and anyone who's about to give birth, I'm like, just remember, you can do anything for 90 seconds and then you get a break. The breaks get shorter, sure thing, but like you get a break. The body's so intelligent. Eventually they stack and you don't get a break. And I'm talking about natural physiological birth. If you're induced or anything like that, all sorts of things can happen. But natural physiological birth, you get a break until you don't. And then you're about to meet your baby. And I'd also read enough birth stories that I knew that I got to the point where I was like, wait a minute, what? Didn't that just finish? Is this starting up again? Is this the same surge? Is this a different surge? They're stacking. And then I kind of lost my focus a bit. And it was the very first time that I had a thought, and that was, I don't know if I can do this. Oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, because I wasn't getting a break. And I also was like, oh my God, I'm about to meet my baby. Because they always say there's a point in birth when the woman will just, if there's people in the room, look at you wild-eyed, like, I can't do this, or something like that. And you're like, oh, she's fully dilated. We're really close. So I was like, oh my God, I'm really close. I just had that I can't do this thought feeling. Okay. Lindsay floats in and she's like been upstairs just listening to my sounds, and she hears that I'm sounding. So she comes down and she's like, oh, you're pushing a little bit on surges. Have you been pushing? And I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm just fucking doing what I got to do to get through. I don't know what's happening. She's like, all right, we're going to get the tub ready. So they, blow up the tub. And again, you're just like, I'm out of it. I don't know what's happening at this point. I don't know where. I'm like on another planet, like so focused. I don't even know what's going on. Eventually she's like, all right, time to get in the tub. She's her and Patrick down there with me. They're so amazing. They're barely talking above a whisper, so gentle in the energy, because that was my actual biggest birth fear. It's kind of a weird one, right? We're all such unique human beings. My biggest birth fear was that people's energy in the room would be off, and I was like, I can't take care of anybody else. I don't want any energy in the room other than pure unconditional love. And if anything comes up for you, I need you to step out of the room and figure it out. Only come back in when you're in a state of purity. That was my fear. And I tell you what, Patrick and Lindsay were amazing. I could cry thinking about it. When I watched back the video that Patrick, I'm so glad he put a tripod and filmed that pushing part. And he edited it into a 6-minute video that I rewatched every day for the first 3 months postpartum. And I swear to God, it was so good for my hormones. It gave me the birth high. I cried every time. It was just amazing to watch that. And when I watch it back, I really got to see even more just how pristine they were. They're just moving so slowly, kind of giving me a lot of space, just whispering, just so still, like so serene, so calm. I was just, so grateful. I get in the tub and I think, oh, great. This is in all the birth stories. Like, women like love the pushing part. They say how amazing it is. I'm like, okay, I get in. And it is the most intense, and it's been intense all day, to push alongside that feeling. And you can't help but push. At least I couldn't. Some people don't, but your body is bearing down, automatically just squeezing. It's a wild feeling. And I was like, oh no, I'm not one of those women who's going to enjoy this. Oh shit. Literally. You are TMI, sorry, but this is a birth story, so let's keep it real here. Your body is bearing down so intensely that you are pooping and throwing up. At least I was pooping and throwing up at the same time. Your body's squeezing, like just squeezing everything. Like everything's just contracting and squeezing and bearing down, that you're like pooping and throwing up. So yeah, there's that. I was so tired by that point. In the birthing pool, I've got my arms on, if you're not on YouTube, then I'll try to describe what I'm doing, but I've got my arms resting on the back edge of the birth pool, like I'm leaning back, right? And I know that's not a good position. This is not a good position to progress right now. And so I try to move and I can't. I literally cannot do anything other than this right now. It makes me emotional. And it makes me emotional because I'm a person who really relies on my ability to get shit done and to do hard stuff. And I just was like, I fucking can't. And it was such a beautiful moment of surrender. My inner voice with myself, my higher self, our relationship is quite comedic. I joke a lot with my higher self. My higher self jokes a lot with me. And I'm so grateful. Humor is something that works for me. And I was just laying there and my inner voice was just like, my love, if you fucking gave up and laid on the floor right now, the baby would still come out of you. This baby's coming, whether you do anything or don't do anything. So just relax. And if I wasn't so fucking tired, I would have laughed at the thought of just quote unquote giving up and laying on the floor and the baby just comes. Because women in a coma give birth, right? The body is doing it. We just have to get out of the way, which is so much of why the mental focus was so important. How do I stay out of the way, essentially, of what's happening in my body? And eventually, Patrick puts on a playlist because I could only listen to binaural beats. I couldn't have anything with words or energies. It was too distracting. It had to be super clear, clean energy. So binaural focus beats was all I listened to. And then eventually Patrick put on a playlist with songs about river because we knew that river was coming. One of them being a song that was at our wedding ceremony. And there was a moment where I'm just laying in the tub and all of a sudden I'm still on my back. I just start singing, take me to your river. I want to go. Ooh, take me to your river. I want to go. And there was just something about that moment that gave me the strength. And I was probably on my back there for an hour with the surges to flip over into like a child's pose. And then things really started moving. I would stick my fingers inside of me and I'd be like, oh my God, I can feel his head. And then I would meet the next surge with everything I had. I was like, let's fucking go. And that is also the hormones. You get a rush of adrenaline around this time. And I think about my birth experience and I'm like, oh yeah, I can really feel the point at which that adrenaline kicked in. And thank God for that adrenaline because you need it for the pushing. But then I would give it everything I had and I would stick my finger back inside and he would have moved back up. And I started to get disheartened. I was like, oh my God, like I can't push I can't do anything more than this. I can't give this anything more. And he communicated with me. He was like, Mum, I'm big. And if you don't want to tear, then we need to take it slow, follow my lead. And I just started smiling all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God, I'm about to meet my baby. I just let go again, another moment of just let go. I was like, all right, this is going to take as long as it takes. And I just let go. I was like, whatever, I'll be here all day, all night, whatever. I'm about to meet my baby. I'm following your lead. And then it shifted, I went from silent till then I was like roaring with my contractions. And then I went to just smiling with them, like, yeah, like bearing down, just chilling. It was so wild. And then his head came right down around my G spot as he was moving through the birth canal and things felt really good. So I had 2 orgasmic minutes out of a 14 or maybe 16 hours of active labor. I'll take it. I'll take 2 minutes. My sounds definitely changed. I was like having a great time. And then he got to a full crown. It's a wild feeling. And, you could feel the top of the head just there. And I'm just like smiling. And then all of a sudden I just go, oh, his head's out. It just came out to my hand. And I really paused and was like, this is the last time that you will be inside of my body. And I just tried to presence that moment. Before that happened, I should say, Patrick's favorite part is like, and then she just took a knee like a Viking shield maiden. I just took a knee and then his head popped out into my hands. And I just paused, really calm there. And it felt like a while, but they're still breathing with the umbilical cord. They don't take a breath through their mouth until their face exits the water and you have nitrogen receptors on the skin on your face, which cue you to breathe. So he's good. He's got all the oxygen he needs, his umbilical cord. He's just chilling. And it's so funny at that point, Lindsay goes, all right, my love, next push is the hardest push you've given all day. You've got the head out. Now you need to get the shoulders out. And it's so funny on camera. I just look at her like, what did you just say? After everything I just did, the next push is the hardest one. Like, what? Wait, what did you just say? And then the next surge comes and I'm like, all right, everything you got. And he just went and slipped out into my hands. I flipped him over and I lifted him up out of the water. And the look on my face and Patrick's face is like jaw dropping, utter disbelief, shock, awe. And then we look at each other like, I'd have this moment of like, what? It's the most alien, crazy shit ever. Like nearly 10 months or whatever you are pregnant. It's not 9, by the way. Like 16 hours of labor still does not prepare you to pull another human out of your vagina. It is wild, y'all. And like, what? Yeah, it was wild. And so then I just lay back and I get him in my arms, and I had requested absolute silence when he's born. Like we were like, but I didn't want like chit chat. I was just like, keep silent. And I think I said, my sweet boy. And Patrick said, Aloha, River. You are Aloha. You are love. And I said, Aloha, River. Because I had a week before he was born. I sometimes have clairaudient experiences where I hear things. It's not my preference. It's like everyone's always like, oh, psychic powers. I want them. I'm like, honestly, like you don't though. And I definitely don't I'm not like praying for like more psychic power. I'm like, God, please use me as a vessel for divine love and service. But I don't really want to see or hear things. Thank you so much. Blessings. Love, Angel. But anyway, every now and then I have clairaudient experiences. I don't have scary ones. I used to when I was a kid, but thankfully, deep appreciation to my guides and all the beings that protect me. But yeah, I don't anymore. But I do sometimes hear music, classical music, or in this instance, it was River is Aloha. River is Aloha over and over and over and over, maybe 350 times overnight. I was like, I get it. River is Aloha. Jesus Christ. Now can we sleep? I woke up the next morning saying like, what does Aloha mean? And Patrick was like, I think it means welcome. And I was like, yeah. I looked it up and it means, let's look it up again now. I'll find what it is. But essentially, the presence of divine breath. And it's a whole way of living. It means kindness to be expressed with tenderness, unity to be expressed with harmony, humility, patience, living in alignment with the land. And it's a traditional greeting because it's, an exchange of divine breath, presence, love. Basically, I was just astounded. And I just thought, wow, if I was a being coming into manifestation and I wanted to give a single word to describe the essence of my soul, Aloha is a really good one. I was like, wow, okay, powerful. So that was why when he was born, the first thing we said to him was, Aloha, River. River is Aloha. Like, you are Aloha. You are love. So, so beautiful. And we just sat there, and then 2 became 3 forevermore. And then it was time to get out of the tub. And Lindsay's like, all right, Patrick, you're going to take him so Angel can get out. And then Patrick's like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, take him. And I like hand him to him with his umbilical cord and his bag with my placenta in it. And Patrick's like, oh, wow. But that's the other thing. Once you give birth, Lindsay's like, okay, time to give birth to the placenta. And I just remember thinking, I cannot push another thing out of my pussy right now. Like, I just cannot. But also, Lindsay was like, once it's done, it's going to feel so good. And I was like, you are right. Saddle up. Let's do this. So pushed out the placenta, which is another birth. It's so wild. It's definitely not. It's way less intense. But once you've already given birth, you just think, wait, I've got to birth something else, something more. What else is there? Come on now. So birthed the placenta, put that in its little baggie, got into bed. My goodness, like to give birth in your room just as the sun was setting over the mountains here in Topanga, which I'm looking at right now. So beautiful. Climb into bed with this little being and just get to rest there for the next 10 days, not have to have a bunch of random people coming in the room and synthetic lighting, and then try to have to figure out a car seat after a few days, because figuring out a car seat's a whole situation. Got to tell you, prepare yourself. To just be at home and just rest. And I was just so grateful. When he was born, my friend Nadia was upstairs holding ceremonial space. It's so amazing. I was like, I don't need a doula. I need a medicine woman. So I asked my friend Nadia, who's a Chinese medicine doctor and just an amazing space holder, would you be there? She just popped down and was like, hey, I'm here. When I was on the toilet and I was so out of it, I just like looked at her and then she popped back upstairs. But having her energy in the space was amazing, keeping the energy clear. She was in prayers. We also had Lindsay's assistant midwife stayed upstairs as well, but was then helping, like, all the behind the scenes, heating up all the water to keep the bath hot, to bring those down, and just so many things happening behind the scenes. So grateful for their energy. And Nadia and Kelsey, the assistant midwife, were upstairs as River was born. The lights flickered and then they heard his cry. makes me emotional. It's like, wow, so powerful to be in that space. If you ever have the opportunity to give birth or be in the room with the birthing woman, it's like the power of God. Wow, it was the most amazing experience of my life by far. Absolutely. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the most amazing thing I've ever done. And it's meant to be intense. The initiation of birth prepares you for the initiation of being a mother. And being a mum isn't always fun or fast or easy, but it is amazing and rewarding and the most amazing thing I've ever done. So, of course, birth is the most amazing thing I've ever done. And it was really hard. And that's why it was so amazing and beautiful. Like climbing Mount Everest isn't easy when you get to the top and you're like looking at the view going, holy shit, I did it. And I just like could feel the power of every woman. It's not like up until the last 100 years, only the strongest women gave birth or naturally. It's like, no, every woman, every human got here that way because that's how badass women are. And we got through it by all the women that would be in the room around us being like, yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can do this, you know? So it was amazing. I'm so grateful for the experience. So, so grateful for a healthy, beautiful baby boy. 9.5 pounds. He's nearly 30 pounds now. He's 8 months old. Yes, that is like off the charts big, big, healthy boy. He's probably going to be a very big man, bless. And had no stitches, a minor laceration. So I was really grateful that I was pushing for 2.5 hours because that up and down, nature is so perfect. It's like slowly stretching you. And also, I think the thing that helped is when he was crowning, I stopped pushing and started blowing to just let my body not over push with his head. Yeah, what an amazing experience. Nadia brought down a bone broth that she'd also whipped with bone marrow and rice. I cannot recommend that enough for a woman who's just given birth. And then we did, the confinement period, 10 days in the bed, 10 days on the bed, 10 days around the bed, 10 days taking no stairs, really just resting. It is such a marathon. I remember when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, I can't stay inside that long, or I can't stay in bed that long. Yes, you can. You've given birth. Yes, you can. So that's birth story. There's so much more on motherhood and life, post baby and marriage post baby and sex life post baby and all of that juicy stuff. So who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of some new solo episodes and a new chapter of Awakened Love. I've missed you all and I'm grateful that you listened this far. I'd love to hear from you. I'm not on Instagram right now. I just finished a 12-day silent retreat with River. That's another podcast. And so I've gotten off social media for 6 months as an experiment. So I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, connect@angelikaalana.com if this moved you, or if you're on YouTube, comment. If you are listening to podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. Makes a big difference. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I'm sending you so much love.